The 2024 annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group kicks off today, Monday, October 21st, and will conclude on Saturday, October 26th. The meetings will take place against a global economic backdrop that is grappling with uncertainty despite equity markets posting healthy returns in North America, European and Asian markets. Our Business Correspondent Rotus Oddiri is in Washington, D.C. and joins us now to have a conversation around this. Hello, Rotus. It's great to see you. I'm sure that all GBR viewers will agree with me on this. You've been away from our screens for too long.
That's good. But Abby, you've been holding down the fort because you're a professional. So it's great to be here with everyone. And hello to all our viewers out there.
Great, great. Well, Rotus, let's begin with some of the triggers pointing to global economic uncertainty as the meetings kick off. What are some of those?
Look, Abby, look at your headlines that you just read off, right? One of them, of course, is geopolitical tensions. So you've got Russia trying to, flex for the West with the BRICS conversation and all this talk about whether or not they can, stop using the dollar and focus more on using the Russian ruble and other currencies. There's also China. Look at you talking about giving that headline to our viewers about cutting that prime lending rate. It's not enough. Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of the IMF, has said that China has to do more than just cutting rates. More direct stimulus has to be pumped into the property market and other sectors. Xi Jinping is hesitant to do that because he doesn't want too much liquidity going into those sectors because of what the detriment or what the flip side of what that could mean. Then you've also got the fact that there are still high levels of debt, particularly for emerging markets. Debt is climbing here in Nigeria, in Kenya, South Africa, and elsewhere. Kristalina Georgieva, ahead of the IMF World Bank meetings, said that we shouldn't celebrate the fact that inflation is decelerating in a number of countries. There is still too much high debt and low growth. So, then of course there's Israel, Gaza, there's Russia, Ukraine. So you put all this together, it's what is causing this cautious optimism and still a number of reasons to say, listen, things are not where they need to be and still more work needs to be done.
Right, quite a myriad of triggers there undoubtedly, and cautious optimism, those really are the key words. But Rotus, we also understand that you saw some protesters in front of the main building. What are they clamoring for?
Yeah, look, we're actually looking forward to talking to them, but they were a little bit hostile and they were cordoned off. But they were on fossil fuels. They were essentially holding up signs saying that, listen, fossil fuels are essentially, destroying the climate. They need to end. And one of the questions I want to ask these protesters, if we get the chance to do that while we're here this week, what do you want a country like a Nigeria or an Iraq or a Libya that depends on fossil fuels to fund its budget? What do you want these countries to do? Who is going to provide the financing to make that shift to renewable energy? So they're still there. They still have a big voice. And of course, that is going to actually be one of the themes that's discussed here this week.
Right, and it's usually quite very well targeted in terms of big events. But what key themes will this week be focused on from what you see so far?
Poverty is definitely on the menu in terms of income inequality. A nation, like you mentioned, BRICS in your headlines, South Africa has one of the largest income inequality gaps on planet Earth. And that's one of the reasons why you see so many protests there. Also, there is, of course, climate, as we just talked about, with respect to energy transition, funding the nations that are fossil fuel dependent to move to that renewable energy. Women, as far as, gender diversity is concerned, and also monetary policy. Monetary policy is going to be a big focus here at the IMF World Bank meetings in terms of its transmission through to a number of countries, and also hawkish monetary policy, raising rates, what it does to cost of borrowing and so on and so forth, and whether or not it is effective in bringing down inflation. And then jobs, particularly for African youth. So a whole lot is going to be discussed here this week.
Right, those are very important and key themes, and of course we will be looking forward to hearing more from you on those. But of course we also understand that there will be a forum today on taxing the super rich. Now that's a very important conversation we've been having over here in Lagos for the last couple of days. Tell us a bit more about what to expect on this.
Yeah, we were in the press room and they just handed out these flyers to us saying, in fact, it's already started. It started right now. I think it'll be going on for the next hour and a half. In one of your headlines, you mentioned, I think, a tax, on the telcos in Nigeria. Taiwo Oyedele, who of course runs the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Taxation in Nigeria, he recently talked about, raising taxes on the super wealthy. The U.S. elections, how do you fund a number of items in the U.S.? The big debate on taxes. Donald Trump wants to cut taxes. Kamala Harris wants to raise taxes on the wealthy. You had just in Kenya the protest over that fiscal policy, or rather the bill that was put forward, which required taxes to rise and was to be withdrawn, right? So taxes across the world are a big topic. And the key thing here is this. I mentioned Kristalina Georgieva mentioning the fact that you have low growth in a number of these countries and high debts. You have to raise income in order to pay down your debts. And how do you raise income if your commodities are not doing well? You've got to tax the super wealthy. So that is a forum that we're going to be looking forward to hearing the snippets and the reaction. Because when you focus on taxing the super rich, they move their money around to different territories. So tax evasion, income, they need to raise it. That's going to be another, very interesting topic taking place here.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And, it'll be great to, get those reactions, because we've seen some sort of divisive reactions towards that so far. So we'd certainly want to learn more about that. But you're looking at from fiscal to monetary policy. What will the monetary policy discussions involving Nigeria and other countries focus on this time around?
Yeah, look, it has to be said that our central bank governor of Nigeria, Olayemi Cardoso, is, gotten a lot of praise for staying on the path that he's been on in order to try to rein in inflation. Now, we know, of course, in Nigeria, after 2 consecutive months of deceleration, we did see an uptick in September for headline inflation and food. However, Cardoso is being praised here at the IMF World Bank meetings for, one, paying off those FX backlogs. So raising rates, making Nigerian securities more attractive, bringing foreign portfolio investments flows in, using that to pay off the FX backlogs, bringing confidence back into the Nigerian market. And I know, yes, there is a debate around the fact that by raising rates in Nigeria, you are making cost of borrowing, you're increasing it. So you're increasing cost of borrowing for individuals, you're increasing cost of borrowing for businesses. But Abby, what are you going to do? I mean, you have to bring inflation down, and the monetary policy team led by Cardoso, he has his mandate. That is what he has to do. You've got, of course, the fiscal side. They have to do what they can. Remember at the last monetary policy committee meeting where they raised rates by 50 basis points, he did point out that, look, on the fiscal side, when FAC allocations, the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee disbursement happens, the Naira depreciates. So there are other things that need to work in cohesion with monetary policy to get us where we need to do. But, Cardoso has been getting a lot of praise here.
Right, and you're spot on. There's a big debate around that. And of course, it's quite a bit of a tug of war right now. But of course, like they say, something has got to give. We have to keep our eyes peeled and see where that goes. But in wrapping up, Rotus, what else is on the agenda for discussion today?
So there is a forum, I think, starting in half hour, an hour. So Kristalina Georgieva is going to be there. Sadi Bhatia, she's the Deputy Secretary of the IMF. They're going to be talking about women and leadership. That's a big one here. Like I said, gender equality, female leadership is going to be discussed. Then another one I'm looking forward to is a topic on monetary policy transition in the United States. Is it effective? When you raise rates or cut rates, how do you impact mortgages? How do you impact banks? Banks, you talked about the markets. I know S&P was down a bit, the Dow Jones was down, but they both hit record highs on Friday. And banking stocks in the US have done well because when you cut rates, as has been happened in the US, you actually make the demand for credit grow. People want to get more mortgages. People want to get car loans. So that actually helps the asset quality for banks, right? On the flip side, if you raise rates, then their net interest margins improve. So there's the transmission on monetary policy in the US. Then, of course, climate and monetary policy, with Asia and the Middle East being an example. And then a big one that I'm really looking forward to is, the title is, "The Clock is Ticking on Youth Jobs in Africa." So there is the African Department of the IMF and the World Bank will be having a discussion here on how to get more African youth employed. Abby, we have so many youth in Nigeria leaving university. They got to get jobs across the world. This is what's happening. Across the African continent, This is the focus. So a lot on the menu today.
Very important discussion points there, and undoubtedly a few exciting days ahead for you there, Rotus. We continue to look out for all these updates, but of course, thanks so much for sharing all this insights. We'll see you very soon. All right, then.